Funny thing about safety, everyone thinks it's optional. Like a seatbelt you only wear when the road looks scary. But somewhere above the noise, above the excuses, there's a presence that never blinks, never looks away, never asks if today is a good day to care. You might think you're alone out here, making choices in the dark, but you're not. Every step, every risk, every shortcut you're tempted to take is already noticed. Not because someone wants control, but because chaos loves gaps, and gaps get people hurt. This isn't about fear, it's about certainty, about knowing that protection isn't a favor, it's a rule. Because when the system is watching, mistakes stop being accidents and safety stops being negotiable. You are never unseen. And that's the part people misunderstand the most. They think being watched means being judged, hunted, or trapped under a spotlight. No, being unseen is far more dangerous. When no one's looking, rules feel optional. Corners get cut, risks feel smaller than they are. That's when people convince themselves that nothing bad will happen, because nothing bad has happened yet. Funny logic, really. Gravity doesn't stop working just because you forgot about it. Every move you make leaves a ripple. Every choice, even the quiet ones, echoes somewhere beyond your line of sight. You may tell yourself you're just one person, one action, one moment that doesn't matter. That's the lie comfort whispers when it wants you careless. Systems don't fail in explosions, they fail in silence, in tiny, ignored moments where someone assumed no one would notice. Someone always notices, maybe not a face, maybe not a voice, but patterns are very observant things. You walk into a space and think you blend in. You think routine makes you invisible. Same path, same habit, same shortcut every day. That's not invisibility. That's predictability wearing a cheap disguise. Predictability is easy to track, easy to measure, easy to break. Being seen isn't about eyes on you. It's about awareness around you. The environment remembers what you, even when people pretend not to. There's comfort in believing you're off the radar. Comfort makes people sloppy. It makes them brave in all the wrong ways. They stop checking twice. They stop asking why. They stop respecting the consequences because consequences haven't introduced themselves yet. But consequences are patient. They wait until confidence turns into negligence, until habit turns into blind faith, until someone decides that just this once doesn't count. You're never unseen means accountability doesn't take breaks. Not on good days, not on tired days, not when the pressure is high and the clock is louder than your instincts. Oversight isn't a cage. It's a reminder that actions matter even when applause is absent. The safest environments aren't built on trust alone. They're built on verification, on the quiet understanding that someone, somewhere, is making sure the math still adds up. People love freedom until responsibility walks in with it. Then they want to negotiate. They want exception. They want to be the special case that proves the rule is flexible. But systems don't care about feelings, and safety doesn't care about ego. When you know you're seen, you move differently. You slow down. You think. You respect the process because the process respects human life more than human impulse ever could. Being unseen would mean mistakes vanish into the dark. Being seen means mistakes get corrected before they grow teeth. It means warnings aren't personal attacks, they're early signals. It means discipline isn't punishment, it's prevention. The watch isn't there because you're untrustworthy. It's there because humans are wonderfully brilliant and consistently flawed at the same time. You don't need fear to stay safe. You need awareness. Awareness sharpens choices. Awareness keeps arrogance in check. Awareness turns, "I'll be fine," into, "Let me be sure." When you accept that you are never unseen, you stop performing for yourself and start acting for something bigger than your mood, your rush, your pride. You understand that every safe outcome, is the result of someone caring enough to keep watching, even when nothing seems wrong. Especially when nothing seems wrong. Safety is a rule, not a suggestion, and rules exist for one simple reason. People are very good at convincing themselves they're the exception. Suggestions invite debate. Rules end it. A suggestion says, do this if you feel like it. A rule says, do this because the alternative hurts someone. And somehow, people still hear rules and think they're guidelines with better marketing. Everyone loves rules when they protect them from someone else's mistake. Suddenly, structure feels comforting. Suddenly, boundaries make sense. But when the rule slows you down, when it asks for patience instead of speed, discipline instead of ego, then it becomes inconvenient. That's when people start bargaining. Just this once, just this shortcut, just this situation. As if risk keeps score and decides to look away because you asked nicely. Rules aren't built for perfect days. They're built for tired minds, rushed decisions, loud environments, and overconfident moments. They exist because humans don't stay sharp forever. Focus slips, judgment bends, pressure distorts priorities. A rule doesn't care how experienced you are or how many times you've done it before. Experience doesn't make you immune to physics, probability, or consequences. It just makes you more creative at justifying bad decisions. Calling safety a suggestion is how people turn discipline into drama. They roll their eyes. They sigh. They complain about how things used to be easier before all these rules showed up. Funny thing is, rules usually show up after something goes wrong. They're written in response to pain, not imagination. Every line exists because someone somewhere paid for that lesson in the most expensive currency possible. A rule doesn't ask if you're in a hurry. It doesn't care if you're confident. It doesn't negotiate with your mood. That's what makes it reliable. Consistency saves lives. Predictability prevents chaos. When safety becomes optional, chaos doesn't knock. It walks right in like it owns the place. And once chaos feels welcome, it starts rearranging everything. People think rules limit freedom. In reality, rules protect the freedom to go home intact. They protect the freedom to show up tomorrow. They protect the freedom to trust that everyone around you is playing by the same standards, not improvising based on vibes and luck. A system where safety is optional isn't flexible. It's fragile. Suggestions rely on good intentions. Rules rely on enforcement. Intentions are invisible. Outcomes are not. You can mean well and still cause harm. You can be careful and still miss something. Rules close the gap between intention and impact. They reduce the space where mistakes like to hide and grow comfortable. When safety is treated as a rule, behavior changes even when no one's speaking. Movements become deliberate. Decisions slow just enough to be thoughtful. People stop asking, "Can I get away with this?" and start asking, "Is this the right way?" That shift doesn't come from fear. It comes from clarity, from knowing the line is firm and not up for reinterpretation every time someone feels bold. A rule isn't personal. It doesn't target you. It targets risk. It doesn't accuse, it anticipates. It assumes that under pressure, anyone can slip. That assumption isn't cynical, it's realistic. Realism is what keeps systems standing when optimism fails. Safety doesn't survive on hope. It survives on structure. The moment safety becomes a suggestion, responsibility becomes optional. An optional responsibility has a habit of disappearing when it's needed most. Shortcuts invite chaos because they're dressed up as intelligence. They pretend to be efficiency, whispering that you're clever for skipping steps, smarter than the process, faster than the system. They make you feel special, like you've cracked a secret code. Everyone else is too slow or too obedient to see. And chaos loves that feeling. Chaos feeds on confidence that isn't earned. A shortcut doesn't look dangerous at first. It looks harmless, quiet, convenient. It saves a minute, a movement, a check. It feels like nothing. That's the trick. Chaos never arrives screaming. It slips in politely, wearing the mask of, "I've done this 100 times." The first shortcut works, so you take another, then another. Soon the long way starts to feel unnecessary, even foolish. That's when the shortcut stops being a choice and starts being a habit. Habits are powerful things. They rewire attention. They dull warning signals. They convince your brain that repetition equals safety. But repetition only means you've been lucky so far. Luck is not a strategy, and chaos has a long memory. It waits for the one time the variables change, the one moment timing is off, or someone else makes a different decision, or the environment doesn't behave the way it usually does. That's when the shortcut shows its teeth. Processes exist because reality is complicated. Every step you skip was designed to catch something you didn't think about, maybe something you couldn't see, maybe something that only shows up once in 1,000 times. Shortcuts assume today is ordinary. Chaos specializes in extraordinary moments. When those collide, guess which one wins? People take shortcuts when they feel pressure. Time pressure, performance pressure, ego pressure. They convince themselves that rules slow them down and speed proves competence. But speed without control is just momentum heading somewhere you didn't choose. Chaos doesn't need you to be reckless. It just needs you to be slightly impatient. There's a strange pride people take in shortcuts. They brag about them quietly. They teach them like secrets, as if bypassing safeguards is a badge of experience. Real experience knows exactly why the long road exists. It understands the cost of skipping. Inexperienced confidence laughs at precautions. Experienced caution respects them because it has seen what happens when they're ignored. Shortcuts also infect others. One person takes them, others notice. Soon it becomes culture. The exception becomes the norm. The risky becomes routine. At that point, chaos doesn't even have to try. It's already been invited in, given a chair, and told to make itself comfortable. When something finally goes wrong, everyone acts surprised. They rewind the tape and point at the final moment, the visible failure, the loud mistake. They ignore the quiet choices that led there, the skipped step, the unchecked detail, the shortcut that saved seconds and cost certainty. Chaos doesn't cause accidents alone. It collaborates with neglect. Taking the long way isn't about being slow. It's about being deliberate. It's about respecting complexity instead of pretending it doesn't apply to you. The long way creates consistency. Consistency creates predictability. Predictability keeps systems stable. Shortcuts fracture that stability one decision at a time. Chaos thrives where discipline weakens. It doesn't need rebellion, just erosion. Just enough small compromises stacked on top of each other until the structure looks solid but isn't. From the outside, everything seems fine. From the inside, safeguards are missing, assumptions are unchecked, and the margin for error has disappeared. Shortcuts don't save time. They borrow it from the future with interest. And chaos always collects awareness, prevents accidents. But awareness isn't loud or dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with alarms and flashing lights. It's quiet. It's the pause before a step, the extra glance. The moment of discomfort where your instincts tell you something doesn't quite add up. Most people ignore that feeling because it slows them down, and speed feels productive even when it's reckless. Accidents don't come from nowhere. They grow in blind spots, in assumptions, in moments where attention drifts just enough to let something slip past unnoticed. Awareness is the opposite of autopilot. Autopilot is comfortable. It lets your body move while your mind wanders somewhere else. Awareness demands presence. It asks you to actually be where you are instead of where you want to be next. People confuse awareness with fear. They think being alert means being anxious, tense, or paranoid. It doesn't. Awareness is clarity. It's seeing things as they are, not as you hope they'll be. Fear imagines problems that might never exist. Awareness notices problems that already do. One paralyzes. The other prepares. The most dangerous moments are the familiar ones. The places you've been 100 times. The tasks you can do without thinking. That's when awareness fades, because repetition breeds confidence, and confidence dulls curiosity. You stop asking questions. You stop checking conditions. You trust memory instead of reality. And reality changes whether you notice or not. Awareness is uncomfortable because it exposes responsibility. Once you see a risk, you own it. You can't pretend ignorance. You can't say you didn't know. So people look away. They keep moving. They choose speed over clarity and hope nothing interrupts their rhythm. Hope is a fragile safety plan. Every accident has a moment before it happens where awareness could have changed the outcome. A sound ignored, a detail dismissed, a signal rationalized away, not because the person didn't care, but because caring requires effort. It requires energy. It requires choosing attention when distraction is easier. Awareness also means understanding how your actions affect others. Your choices don't exist in isolation. One missed step creates risk for everyone connected to the system. One lapse spreads outward. Accidents are rarely solo acts. They're shared consequences of individual inattention layered over time. The environment is always communicating. Machines talk. Processes talk. But they don't use words. They use patterns, vibrations, resistance, silence. Awareness is learning that language and listening even when it's inconvenient. Ignoring it doesn't make it stop speaking. It just means the message gets louder later. People trust checklists more than awareness, and that's understandable. Checklists feel objective. You tick a box and feel safe. But awareness is what makes checklists work. Without attention, a checklist is just a ritual. You can complete every step and still miss the point if your mind isn't present. Awareness gives meaning to procedure. When awareness is strong, accidents struggle to find space. Errors get caught early. Adjustments happen before damage. Small corrections replace big failures. That's the quiet power of paying attention. It doesn't eliminate risk, but it shrinks it, contains it, and keeps it from spiraling. Lack of awareness isn't stupidity. It's fatigue, distraction, overconfidence. Pressure, it's human. That's why awareness has to be practiced, not assumed. You don't have awareness. You choose it again and again, especially when everything feels routine. The moment you believe nothing can go wrong is the moment awareness leaves the room and accidents start planning their entrance. Protection overrides convenience, and that's the part that frustrates people the most. Convenience is seductive. It promises speed, comfort, and ease with no visible downside. It whispers that safety can wait. That protection is something you add later if things start to feel risky. But protection doesn't work on a schedule. It has to be present before it's needed, or it's just decoration. Convenience makes people impatient with safeguards. They see protective steps as obstacles instead of shields. Something to get around rather than something to rely on. Every extra check feels like wasted time. Every barrier feels like an insult to competence. But protection was never designed to flatter ego. It was designed to survive reality. The moment convenience becomes the priority, judgment starts bending. People choose the faster path because it feels efficient, even when it removes layers that exist for a reason. Protection asks for effort. It asks you to slow down, suit up, double-check, follow the process. Convenience asks for nothing and gives nothing in return except the illusion of progress. Protection assumes something might go wrong. Convenience assumes everything will go right. One is cautious, the other is optimistic. Optimism is nice for speeches. Protection is better for outcomes. The world doesn't reward hope. It responds to preparation. Protection doesn't care if failure is likely. It cares that failure is possible. People often say, "It'll just take a second." That sentence has introduced more problems than any malfunction ever has. Convenience thrives in seconds. Skipped steps, ignored barriers, bypassed protocols all hide inside that small window of time. Protection stretches time slightly to collapse risk significantly. The trade-off is always worth it, even when it doesn't feel like it in the moment. There's also a false belief that protection is only for extreme situations, big dangers, rare events. But protection is meant for ordinary days, for routine tasks, for moments when attention drifts and fatigue sets in. The more normal the situation feels, the more protection matters, because that's when people stop respecting risk. Convenience makes systems fragile. It strips away redundancy. It removes buffers. It turns complex environments into thin structures that only work when everything goes perfectly. Protection builds resilience. It adds layers. It assumes stress, error, and unpredictability and plans for them, instead of pretending they won't show up today. People complain that protection slows productivity. What it actually slows is failure. Accidents are expensive. Errors cost time, trust, and sometimes lives. The time saved by convenience disappears instantly when something goes wrong. Protection may cost minutes up front, but it saves hours, days, and consequences you can't rewind. When protection is taken seriously, behavior changes. Movements become intentional. Decisions feel heavier, and that's a good thing. Weight in decision-making means awareness of impact. Convenience makes decisions light and careless. Protection gives them gravity. Protection isn't about fear or weakness. It's about respect. Respect for risk. Respect for systems. Respect for the fact that humans are not perfect and never will be. Convenience pretends perfection is the default. Protection knows better. The real danger isn't inconvenience. It's the belief that comfort deserves priority over survival. Protection doesn't ask permission to be inconvenient. It overrides it every time. Responsibility is always monitored, and that idea makes people nervous because it removes their favorite hiding place. People love ambiguity. They love the space where blame can dissolve, where accountability gets blurry enough to slip through. Monitoring closes that space. It says your choices don't vanish once they're made. They stay. They echo. They leave fingerprints even when you wipe the surface clean. Responsibility isn't just about what you do when someone's watching. That's performance. Real responsibility is what you do when you think no one's paying attention. Monitoring exists because humans are remarkably consistent in one way: when they believe their actions won't be noticed. Standards quietly drop, not dramatically. Not all at once, just enough to matter later. People misunderstand monitoring as mistrust. They take it personally as if oversight is an accusation. It's not. It's an acknowledgement of reality. Pressure changes behavior. Fatigue changes judgment. Comfort breeds shortcuts. Monitoring doesn't assume bad intent, it assumes human limits. And limits don't disappear just because someone is experienced or confident. Responsibility without monitoring relies on character alone. Character is important, but it's not immune to stress. Systems that depend entirely on self-discipline eventually crack because discipline fluctuates. Monitoring stabilizes it. It keeps behavior consistent even when motivation dips or distractions multiply. When responsibility is monitored, excuses lose their power. You can't hide behind, "I didn't think it mattered," or "I thought it would be fine." The record exists. The pattern is visible. Monitoring turns vague accountability into concrete reality, not to punish, but to correct before damage spreads. People act differently when responsibility is tracked, not because they're afraid, but because clarity sharpens behavior. Expectations become real. Standards stop being theoretical. You know where the line is, and you know it doesn't move based on mood, rank, or confidence. That predictability creates discipline without shouting. Unmonitored responsibility invites selective memory. People remember their intentions and forget their actions. They recall what they meant to do, not what they actually did. Monitoring doesn't argue with memory. It replaces it with evidence. Evidence doesn't care about feelings, only outcomes. There's a reason systems collapse quietly before they fail loudly. Responsibility erodes first. Small lapses ignored. Minor deviations accepted. Monitoring catches erosion early. It notices drift before it becomes damage. Without it, problems stay invisible until they're too big to manage calmly. Some people behave well only when observed. Others behave well regardless. Monitoring isn't designed for one group or the other. It levels the field. It ensures that standards don't depend on personality. Everyone plays by the same rules, and that fairness builds trust within the system. Responsibility also multiplies. One person's lapse forces others to compensate. One ignored duty shifts risk onto someone else. Monitoring reveals those chains. It shows how individual choices ripple outward. Responsibility stops being abstract and becomes shared reality. People who resist monitoring often say they value freedom. But freedom without responsibility is chaos with better branding. Monitoring doesn't remove freedom. It anchors it. It keeps freedom from turning into recklessness disguised as confidence. When responsibility is always monitored, growth becomes possible. Patterns emerge. Weak points get addressed. Training improves. Systems adapt. Monitoring isn't static surveillance, it's feedback. Feedback is how improvement happens instead of repetition of the same mistakes with different excuses. The idea that responsibility ends once a task is done is comforting but false. Responsibility lingers. It lives in outcomes, impacts, and consequences that unfold after the action. Monitoring follows that trail. It connects cause to effect without emotion, without drama. Knowing responsibility is always monitored doesn't make you smaller. It makes your actions heavier, more deliberate, more honest. It removes the illusion that choices can be isolated, temporary, or harmless, and replaces it with the understanding that every decision stands in a spotlight whether you acknowledge it or not.